Okay, I'm going to try really hard to get us back on schedule. So we are so excited about our panel that's sitting in front of you right now. We'd like to consider them our experts in advocating in Washington, D.C. So if we could welcome them. So I'm going to start with some of our self-advocates, if that's okay. So Jeff, can you stand up for a second? So can you tell us, where do you live?
I live at Wash Slattery.
And that's a group home, right, at Misericordia?
Yes.
Okay, and then you have a job somewhere. Where do you work?
I work at Luminati's.
And who's delivering our pizza tomorrow?
Luminati's.
So Jeff, you're a busy guy, so you work at Luminati's, but you have other jobs as well, correct?
Yes, I do. I work in the bakery packaging, where I'm scooping things. I work at Main Laundry, and I also volunteer at the Adult Down Syndrome Center, and I have my job at the Malnati's.
Excellent. So you're a busy guy, right? So you work in the community about 15 hours a week, is that correct?
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about why the campus is important to you?
The campus is important to me because it gives me a chance to be a part of the choir, where I can sign, be a part of the sign class, be a part of parties and dances, and being able to go to other houses and other cellas. It gives me a chance to go out there and represent Misericordia as a spokesperson, and also gives me a great expectation of my Misericordia life.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. So can you tell us a little bit about when you went to Washington, D.C., what was that like for you?
I went to Washington, D.C. to talk about Together for Choice.
You were talking about what's really important to you.
And what's really important to me is that I have the opportunity of a choice that where I want to work, where do I want to live, and I chose Misericordia. The reason why I chose Misericordia is because I've been here for 2 years, and it gives me the opportunity to say, please do not take away my choice.
Excellent. Thank you, Jeff. So our next two speakers are Bob and Molly. If you could stand up, please. So, Molly, you want to tell us where you live?
I live at Eisenberg.
Okay, so Molly lives at one of our group homes in the community as well, right? Yes. So when we talk about community, what communities do you belong to?
I work at Prince Foods.
And where is that?
In Blanco.
So you have a job in the community. So that's one of your communities. What other communities?
Well, you live in the Eisenberg Silla, so you're out in the community there.
Yeah.
And what do you do? What communities do you have on campus?
Community.
So you're in the Heartbreaker, so that's a community. You're in your Special Olympics here on campus, and that's a community for you. And you have the other Sillas that you go and visit, like Jeff does, and that's a community for you. So you have a bunch of communities you're part of, and that you choose to be part of.
So Molly's got kind of a special story, right, that you'd like to share with your experience in D.C. Maybe, Bob, you can help her share that?
So what did we give, and Jeff did this, and Mark did this as well, what did we give to the representatives and senators before you spoke to them? What did you have?
We had a business card.
Business card. all, when they went up to address the senators and representatives, would give them a business card. And many times they got business cards back. And in fact, Senator Durbin gave Molly his card back. He reached into his wallet after receiving Molly's card, gave her his card, which she's had in her wallet ever since then. Almost, I just found out today that she did remove it recently. And he has since then, based on a letter that we as a family sent to Senator Durbin, sent her another business card with a personalized note to Molly. So the business cards were and it was your idea, Gina, a very powerful part of our trip to DC and equalizing, I think, the playing field with our representatives and senators.
So these are just a couple of examples of stories that we shared when we went to DC. I think one of the most important things is being there and telling the stories and having the actual individual tell the story along with their parents. We can come as organizations and talk about the importance of what we do, but bottom line is they need to hear it specifically from these guys. So thank you guys so much. Mark? So our next speaker is Mark Dempsey, and Mark has got an interesting story. So he's going to tell us a little bit about his story and what he shared when he went to DC. So Mark, where did you live before you came to Misericordia?
Lived in Chicago on the Gold Coast.
You lived on the Gold Coast in Chicago. Does everyone know where that is? It's a nice area, right?
Yes.
So what was it like for you?
It was, I and my family living around there also, but it was confining. I was isolated. Had no real friends to speak of, and it was just lonely for me, just no friends, I didn't really go out that much, and go out to do different things, and it was really isolating.
So since you've come to Misericordia, what is your life like now?
Oh, just totally different.
Can you tell us, what do you do at Misericordia? What's your life like?
I'm in the art department. I'm in the choir.
Oh, and just wanted to mention, do you want to tell them who you sang with on Monday?
Monday night, we went down to Navy Pier for the Keter benefit for epilepsy research. We sang with Eddie Vedder, a Pearl Jam, and Niels Lofgren from the E Street Band, and we saw Miguel Cervantes.
Excellent. How fun.
Yes, it was really fun. Really great time.
So I understand that when you came to Misericordia, you found a talent that you didn't know you had. Is that right?
Yes. Taking a painting. I had worked for Blue Cross for 40 years, and I retired 40 years ago. And ever since then, I picked up, been in the art department, as I said, and I picked up painting. So I never painted before. So it was just unbelievable. It's so great to create and be a part of something bigger, and it's really great.
Thank you, Mark, so much. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to our parent speakers.
So I will introduce parent advocates with no special in order, but I'm just going to introduce the names here. Carol Fernandez, representing Camp Hill Tri-Form, Hudson, New York. Krista Mason, Benjamin's Hope, and Holland, Michigan. Brian Battle and Bob Bork of Misericordia, Chicago, Illinois. So tell us about yourself. How did you become an advocate?
Who do you want to start with? Well, I guess I'm holding the microphone, so I guess I'll start. I'm Carol Fernandez. My son, Alejandro, is 24, and he resides at a Camp Hill community called Tri-Form, which is just outside of Hudson, New York. He's been there for 4 years, and it's an amazing place. And when I first came to Tri-Form, as how did I become an advocate, it's like, how could I not become an advocate? How could I not work to sustain this place that has done so much for my son? Don't get me started, I can keep you here all afternoon about how in love I am with Tri-Form, and what it's done for him, and how that has encouraged me to do my own, to do the advocacy. I've gone down to Washington, D.C. Twice with Together for Choice to lobby, to tell our stories as parents, what it means for us as families to have these places for our adult children. I'm also a retired attorney, and I thought that I could use some of my legal skills. But what I've determined is that it's really the personal stories that get the most mileage. It's going into Hudson, this little town that has all these cute little restaurants and stuff. And when people say, oh, why are you here in Hudson? I get to say, well, let me tell you about the place where my son lives, because he's why I'm here. And did you know about Triform? And they'll say no. And whether they want to hear it or not, they're going to get my few-minute elevator speech about these communities that are right outside their doors. And so for me, it was just kind of a no-brainer. It was something I had to do because there's nothing more valuable to me than a wonderful place for my son to live.
What was the question, Ashley?
How did you become an advocate?
How did I become an advocate? Right. So my youngest son, Ben, who just turned 23 years old, is quite profoundly impacted by autism. And in young years, as we started to look forward to his adult life and dream about what that might be for him, we were concerned, I think, at what we saw, and wanted something that would give him full opportunity. So I think Ben has largely inspired Benjamin's Hope, which is in Holland. It's a live, work, play worship community. But thinking about our advocacy and our time in DC recently, I love that you guys made the trip there and were able to speak directly to what is important to you about your life. For my son Ben, that would be a trip that would be very traumatic for him, so we instead took a video, which was professionally produced, about his life and the life of some of the men and women who live at Ben's Hope, and shared that directly with the representatives. And I think that, as you were saying, Carol, a personal voice talking about what's important is far more impactful than any words that even a parent advocate can say. So it was wonderful.
All right, I'll go next. I think my DC advocacy came out of a natural progression of what I'm a parent here at Misericordia. Came out of what Misericordia has already done. Misericordia is really good in the city of Chicago. Everybody knows who we are, they know what we do, and Sister has had people come here, in the county, and then we've done it at the state level. So the advocacy starts at home. If your mayor or the people in your county don't know what you do, you have to get them there. Then it happened in Springfield. Misericordia is really good in Springfield. We have a lot of advocacy in Springfield. And then the natural progression was, next thing we do is have to go to Washington. So it's easy for me, and I'm an advocate because I'm fully vested in the future of Misericordia, but you're exactly right. Advocacy is personal. When you go in that office, it touches them in a way. Every legislator loves an anecdote, and if you can say, here's my son, this is what he does, they remember that. Because they hear about the price of tea in China, to soybean harvest, to oil in Texas. But if you can make that personal for them, it's a distinct advantage. It's an advantage I have as a parent, and you should use it to your advantage.
You've heard a lot of the Molly Burke story, but I'm an advocate because she loves living here at Misericordia. And with her life here at Misericordia, she has the choice to work in the community, which she does. She talked a little bit about that. She takes a train to work on her own every day and comes back. She has the choice to live in the community, which she does at the Eisenberg Scylla, which you heard about. And she has the choice to have access to this wonderful campus that is just great, and all the activities it affords her and the other residents. So she's happy, and I'm happy to be an advocate to push her happiness and to push the happiness for all the residents that we have here.
So talking about your experience in DC, what were some of your highlights that you would like to share with the audience? And I mean, we have Chris and Phil here. I mean, without them, we would be so lost in Washington, DC. So please share.
They were terrific, because I want to say they came with us to our appointment. They set up our appointments, and they came with us to our appointments. So we could not have done it without them. For me, I think the best part was when the congressman who represents Columbia County in New York State, where there were 4 Camp Hill communities, he came down from Capitol Hill to meet with us specifically. He didn't shove us off on a staffer. He, in fact, brought an aide with him who was taking notes during all of this, that it was important to him to come and hear our stories and to see what he could do for us, which was amazing because sadly, you go and you get bumped down to somebody who doesn't know anything about what you're talking about. You don't even know if they have any influence with the congressperson, senator, or representative that you're there to talk to. So for me, that just was like, it is possible to really engage someone on Capitol Hill in your story, to get them to understand what's going on, and to be on your side, that we did have some allies there.
An impression that I had that was surprising, never having been on Capitol Hill before, is how accessible people are. You know, they're office doors side by side in these long hallways, and you have meetings, thank you to the folks that coordinated for us, and you walk in and you can get directly in front of people that really do have an interest, I found. And often I was surprised how informed they were prior to the start of the conversation to some of the challenges that we're facing. So it was far less intimidating than I expected it to be. So just as an encouragement, I think many of us are comfortable at our state level and certainly at our local level with advocacy work, but I found DC to be less frightening than I expected it to be.
I think that's exactly right. The same thing you do locally and at the state level, you can do it in Washington. Your congressman and your senator works for you, so you call and say, I am Mr. X and I live in the congressman's district. I would like to see him about this issue. They will make that appointment. You are their constituent, so that's your right and that's their responsibility to do that. We've had good luck with legislative assistance. You might not meet Senator so-and-so, but Washington runs on everybody below the senator. All these policy experts, and if you go to Washington, they're all kids. So just
They're
as a
so
warning.
young.
Yes.
Everybody's under
Yeah.
30.
Yes. A lot of policy guys with kids, boys and girls with masters and degrees go to Washington to do public policy. So you might meet a 25-year-old that knows everything about Medicare, CMS, and health care. So when my lovely bride, Dana, and I went, the people that we met were impressive. These kids know what they're talking about, and their legislator relies on them, because the legislator will say, what do we think about home-based setting? They'll ask that, that you have that influence at the member level, but don't underestimate how powerful the policy people are, because they're the ones that are really driving that discussion. And if you can make it personal for them, they'll carry that right into the House.
Again, this is my first time being in Washington, D.C., and I agree with all the comments that have been made, but what really impressed me was the power of our self-advocates here, that they were great. Ryan Jennings, I see Holly in the back of the room. Ryan also went with us, and they just stole the show and were great, and there were other self-advocates there, and that was a very powerful part of what we did, I thought.
Well, maybe this might be just a question for Brian. What would be the difference between meeting the representative staff in your own home state versus actually going to Washington, D.C.?
Yeah, so the district staff is going to be more focused on what's going on in your region, but they're a great conduit to get to Washington. Remember, this is all predicated on the people in your town know you, the people in your state know you, and then you should have to work. So if you're going to go to Washington and start advocating, the people in Washington might, because remember, your U.S. rep might have been a state rep or a state senator before. So all those people know each other. That's an open communication channel. So your regional contact will be very, very helpful to get you into Washington, but the policy and the decisions that are made are from Washington. So you can go through your district office, but if you can go to Washington, that's the best place to affect change. And to get those anecdotes and to bring your residents and your siblings to Washington, because that really, really makes an impact. It's personal.
Actually, Carol, you've done some work at the state level, and then and Krista as well. So can you share some of that experience, the difference between state and federal?
Quite honestly, I have a bit of an issue because I'm a Massachusetts resident, and my son is now a New York State resident. So it's been hard for me to advocate in New York State because my phone call's coming from Boston, and they may not want to talk to me, even if I tell them that my son is the advocate. So I think I'm going to pass that on, actually, to someone who might have more state experience.
We've had responsiveness at the state level, but it was impressive to me when we were at the federal conversation. Frankly, it felt more accessible at the federal level to me than when we're at the state. And I think part of that might have been, I think if you're willing to go to DC and talk about your situation, hopefully take a person who's able to speak for themselves about their situation, I think that shows a different level of engagement on our part as advocates.
I just thought of something on a really down to the ground state level, local level, is I do go to, I stay in this little town of Hudson. That's a very charming town when I go spend the weekend to see my son. And I go into restaurants and they say, oh, where are you from? I'm from Boston. What brings you here? Well, let me tell you what brings me here. And I launch into my speech about why I'm here in the Camp Hill communities that surround them, because these are the constituents of the state representatives and the state senators and the congresspeople and the senators. And if they know what's going on in their communities and what's going on with our communities, then they can help at least be knowledgeable about what's going on and make this something of an issue that can resonate with your legislators, so that we're not just hidden and we're not some invisible community kind of tucked away in the farmlands back there, but a real vibrant part of their community. So I try to talk it up with almost everybody I talk to, shopkeepers, wait staff, whoever it is that I talk to, who can, who dares to ask me why am I here, because I'll just launch in and tell them.
Okay. How about Bob?
I don't have a lot to add to what's already been said. Locally, a representative who's been to Misericordia, talked to her a number of times. I talked to local officials in the city I live in, Evanston, about, because there are a lot of our residents who are from Evanston. So just talking and spreading the word and talking about what a great place this is. I think we're all advocating all the time.
That's true.
When we're out in the community, no matter who you're meeting.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
So I wanted to mention something really quick, just so that everybody understands. These are kind of two different approaches. So Ashley has gone with a group and has gone specifically to the offices of the congressmen and women and the senators, right? So they've actually gone directly and sat in their office. In Illinois, what we did is we organized an Illinois Day on the Hill. And we brought, I think it was 35 individuals, other organizations as well, many of them that are in the room today. They brought their self-advocates as well. And we had the opportunity to, sit in a room, and all of the congressmen and women came to us for the day, which was really great. So it helped when you bring a large group to do it that way versus traveling around, because it's a lot of walking, right?
I think there's, different ways of approaching this. So what is your desired outcome? It's an open-ended question, I guess, but what is your desired outcome?
A steady stream of funding for all of our communities with no questions asked. It's just that there's a need. We say, we have these children, there's a need, give us money. They say, great. That's my ultimate pie in the sky one.
Choice would be my ultimate outcome. We, with Molly, have decided and chosen this is the place we want to be, and I don't think it's fair for somebody to try and tell us this isn't the best option for Molly, so it would be choice.
And everyone should have a choice where they want to be, where they want to live, what you want to be, and everyone should have that.
I would reiterate that. I think, all people, whether they're affected by disability or not, have the opportunity to self-direct life. And I think we need to work very hard to protect everybody's ability to do that. And that's going to necessitate a continuum of options, because people are different. The support needs that help them be successful look different from person to person. Choice.
I think my desired outcome would be that the money follows the individual, that we don't get there's not regulatory discrimination, and that we keep doing it, because Congress changes over a lot, senators change over a lot, state government changes over a lot. This isn't something you do once. This is a relationship that you have to have with your regulators and your legislators that will persist, because you want them to know you're in regulatory good standing, you have a great organization, and that you bring them to you. You can't tell them about your campus, bring them, have them come see it. So I think my desired outcome is that we keep doing it for as long as we can.
So Brian, I think that also brings me to the point, we have to go back more, because what happens is, you know, offices are changing, right? We have an election coming up, and we know that all of the hard work that we did last year at this time in DC, that could change. We're gonna have to meet with new people, and we're gonna have to keep making sure they understand our message. So you can't go once. You have to go, you have to be in their face. They need to know who you are and what you represent.
What I was going to say is that I have advocates that have me come here to Misericordia, and the two advocates are my mom and dad. They have gave me a lot of growth and a lot of expectations in my life, and I'm hoping that because of Misericordia and all of you that are here today, I am so wanted to say that I am so proud of myself for who I am, not what I have. So please, I'd like you to give a big hand to my mom and dad for all that they have done for me and my family, and Misericordia and Gina and all of you that made this happen for me.
So one final question, what advice would you give to other parent advocates?
Keep advocating. I think it's a pretty simple. You know, advocating for what you believe and what you think is right, and so it's I think it's a simple message. Just keep doing advocating, doing more of it.
One thing that I would say is when we advocate, if we happen to be advocating on behalf of a child or an adult child who is not traditionally verbal, advocate as you're best able in the voice of your child. You understand his or her desires, and often when we advocate as parents that I want this for my child, it is often misunderstood. So I would say respect the voice and the interest of your child in your language and how you advocate on their behalf.
And I'd say it's persistence, you know, we have to keep after it. But more importantly, everyone in this room, if I go in and tell my representative, hey, I have this problem, that's one thing. But if I go in there and say, we have a nationwide group together and we share this problem and we really need help, then they can call the guy from Ohio, hey, have you heard this from these people? Hey, call the guy from Texas, have you heard from these people? So there's power in numbers, and that we have a consistent message, and we're all trying to just achieve the same thing, which is choice, is very powerful. So the group, and the more people we get in the group, the better. So spread the word. We need more people in together for choice.
And my one piece of advice for parent advocates is to be brave, is to talk to anybody. Don't be afraid to talk. Just because they have senator in front of their name or president in front of their name, for that matter, doesn't mean that you don't have the right to talk to them and to be heard and to insist that you be heard. Because I think that we all get kind of, oh my gosh, it's intimidating walking into these offices with all the flags and people protecting them. And you think, well, it's just me and there's senator, but you have every right to be there. Your cause is terrifically important, and to just be brave and step up and speak.
Yes, and not only that, I think, you know, just today, just by hearing directly from Melissa Harris, we all understand that it's really important to hear directly from those that are responsible, that are the decision makers, because it's important to have that direct communication and not just be so driven by rumors and fears, because when you actually talk to CMS and other government agencies, we actually get, you know, information that actually like help us clarify some of the issues that we've been worried about, right? So I think it's important to have that communication line open with CMS and your own state government agencies, Department of Labor, who you're gonna hear directly from. So thank you so much for joining us in DC and for fighting. Thank you so